Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, or today you can call me Mista Whiskey because I am here with Mista Yu. I was on one of his shows. I say shows because he has a couple. He actually has more now than when I recorded with him because he went ahead and launched a new one because you can never have too many podcasts. Not only does he have many podcasts, he has many kids, many grandkids, and a lot of different things that he's involved with. He's a busy, busy man. So we're gonna get into all of that today and talk about some great things with family, with community, with podcasting, with ministry, and tying them all together. Mr. Yu and I have actually a lot in common, so I'm excited for today's conversation. Mr. Yu, I hyped you up pretty good there, but go ahead and fill us in on some details I may have missed.
First off, I appreciate it, man. And secondly, you are right, man. It's a lot going on, but I believe that a productive busy is better than just being busy for busy's sake. So, yeah, I don't know what you miss, man. I mean, the podcast life is becoming a whole life of its own. So I stay busy with
Yeah.
this. I mean, my wife and I are directors of a new nonprofit for children, so that keeps us busy. We're doing summer camps with little kids from ages 4 to 10, and they got us running. So there's a lot happening, man. Plus some other projects. Can't get into them just yet, but hopefully I can announce a few of those soon. I'm really excited about that. It's kind of a return to a place I thought was dead. I'm kind of going back into it again, so I'm excited about announcing that hopefully at some point soon. But podcasting, man, the nonprofit, and then the whole family dynamic and ministry, of course, too. I can't leave that out. Keeps me very, very busy, man. But thanks for having me on here and making the time for this. So I definitely appreciate that for sure.
Yes, sir. Busy and blessed. And I want to start with your journey of faith because I think that based on what I've read about you and our conversations, I think that has played a huge role into everything you are doing. So let's start with that, your roots and origin of faith and kind of the different things in your life that affected your faith and how your faith has affected the different things in your life.
Yeah, well, without question, it's a very big, big, big part of my life. I grew up, I won't say I was in it, but I was exposed to the Episcopalian faith, if you will. My mom and grandmother were deeply rooted in that. It just never really did anything for me. If my mom was watching this right now, she might say something, but I mean, to be honest, I'm trying to be honest at all times. It just didn't do anything for me. If you know anything about the faith, you know it has roots in Catholicism, so you can kind of imagine what a service would look like. You know, the homilies and the hymnals. You can imagine what it's like, and that was just too toned down for me. I mean, I'm this kid from Brooklyn. I'm already wild. I came into the world wild, anyways. So you can't tame me with that kind of that's
Sit
not
still for 2 hours. There's
yeah.
incense, there's singing,
Yeah,
there's a lot of
harps and
procedure.
violins ain't going to do it for me. But that's just where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? But so I grew up in that, but it just really didn't do it for me. And I had a situation I would consider a near-death situation because that's kind of what it was. Kind of propelled me to a place where I'm like, you know what, God, I need you to show up. Not like you did for my grandmother or for my mother, but for me. I need to know you for myself. And it kind of just transpired into a whirlwind of situations. And in 1996, my real faith journey began, and I've been on it ever since. I believe it's made me the person that I am, the man that I am today. Hopefully, I'm looked at with having character and integrity. Hopefully, people can see that. With all our podcast work, I know people say, "Oh, you got so many things going on, and you're busy and stuff." But hopefully, people see the heart of what drives what we do on every single one of the shows. We have a sports show that I talk about our favorite football team, and I even always find a way to put that heart in that show still. So it's hopefully it shows and it's resonating with people. But yeah, that's kind of where it started, man. Hopefully I answered the question. I know it was a lot. I don't know how much time we have to work through some things, but I want to kind of just be brief and respect your time, man. But hopefully I answered that.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that. So, I mean, you kind of explained why you asked God to show up in your life, right? How was that manifested in your life? Was it a certain book you read? Was it a certain event that really changed everything? How did you begin to see God in your life once you started seeking that personal relationship with Him?
Okay. I was the victim of an armed robbery prior to my saying, God, I need you to show up. I wasn't harmed. I should have been because how the situation went. The person was very, very afraid for a lot of reasons that I can't get into now, but they're very, very afraid. And they had their finger on the trigger. The gun was probably about maybe 3 or 4 inches from my face. So I'm like, you got somebody who's scared, obviously, and have your finger on the trigger and a gun pointed at your face. Anything can happen in that situation. And I was only 5 houses away from my mom's house where I was staying at the time. So it can sober you up real quick and make you reevaluate life when you have a situation like that. So once I got through that situation, I got on my mom's steps and said, you know what? Look to the sky and said, God, if you're real, I need you to show up for me. Show me who you are. Show me even in all of this. So I want to be the person I'm supposed to be. So it kind of started there. I was doing music at the time. I was doing rhythm and blues and hip hop in New York. I had a recording deal on our independent record label, and we were trying to, I guess, to some degree, trying to make it big. I guess, be relevant in the music business. And some things happened with the company. We weren't very happy with that, and it kind of caused us to kind of regroup, try to find out, how to reinvent ourselves, I guess you could say. So we decided since we produced the whole first album that we did, we produced it mainly by ourselves. Excuse me. We decided to go ahead and start a production company out of state. And that's kind of where the story really started to happen. So it wasn't any books or anything. I mean, the Bible was always present in our home. So it wasn't like I couldn't find that. It was there. I guess the application of it wasn't there. So I knew things about the Bible, but the application was just not there.
Mm,
So I didn't have any books or anything to kind of guide me. It was just really like, you know what? I wouldn't call it existential. I'm struggling to find the word to describe it, but it was just like, I just had a sense in me that, you know what? These situations I'm having in my life right now, a lot of them, and what I would consider near-death experiences, where I could have been out of here and never accomplished anything that I've done up to this point. And I'm like, I can't live like that. So that mindset fuels how I live. It fuels how I lead my family. It fuels how I do anything actively in ministry. It also fuels how I coach people who have the same kind of questions I had about purpose and I guess finding themselves and I guess finding relevance and acceptance in the world where that's so hard to find. So I think it kind of just did that help a little bit because I would just there's a lot of layers to this story. Did that help, Mr. Whiskey?
for sure. Seeking a relationship with God and wanting Him to show you who you're supposed to be is one thing. The preaching and the ministry work, in the community work, and the volunteering, the nonprofits, the heart behind everything you do, was that what God showed you, or did that kind of develop as you grew in faith? Like, because wanting to know God is one thing, and then becoming a preacher, is a totally different, it's a huge step up from where you were. So, what was that transition into that? Like, how did that happen?
Well, that's a great question, man. Honestly, I'm glad that it went the way it did. I've seen a lot of folks who say, you know what, but I feel like I'm called to do this, and they jump right into it, and they don't have the character to keep them in the place that they're trying to get to.
Mm, yeah,
And so I'm not trying to disparage anybody who's doing that or have that kind of situation. Hey, that's your thing. I'm gonna let you do you. I'm not trying to get in the way. But I'm glad that things didn't go like that for me. I mean, I had to deal on basically almost what I would call a self repair. I had so many things that areas where I was broken, and it was like I just needed God. I just needed the relationship with a loving father. I just needed to have the community and the opportunity to kind of rebuild. Of course, the word of God was a big part of that rebuilding. It wasn't any kind of self-help, new age nonsense. It was just the word of God and understanding who I am in that and seeing myself in the mirror of the word and hearing the promises of God and how he feels about me because I had a rough childhood when it came to fatherhood and such. So I needed to rebuild, my mind about where I'm at and what I can have, what my value is. So those are things that had to happen. And honestly, it took years to get to the place where I was able to start doing things outside, like in active local ministry, if you will. I was always a singer, so that kind of came out once people found out about it in the church. They kind of thrust me into the role of being
right.
a music minister. It wasn't something I was looking for, but I recognized that because of the size of the church and where they were developmentally, I was helping. and when you have your heart softened like mine was at in that year, I said yes to that, and it was a journey. It was definitely something that propelled me to be able to do things on a higher level in the ministry of music and worship, which I'm doing even today. So it did help that I was walking in generosity, I guess, and say, you know what, I'm still healing here. I'm still dealing with some stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and try to serve here. I think it turned out well. Honestly, all this everything with the preaching and the writing and stuff, it kind of came a lot later, but I felt like I had a better sense of who I was before I started doing it. That part I'm really grateful for. I know a lot of folks who say I'm called to preach, and their character is not there. I mean, their rooms aren't clean. I mean, physically, personal hygiene wise, stuff is not right. They don't know how to
Mm.
talk to people when they face any kind of conflict. They're more reactive than they are responsive. I mean, and it's like, okay, but you're called to do this. It's like there's a time frame where you need to develop you. King David, probably arguably the greatest king in biblical or any history. It took 25 years, I believe that was correct, from the time he was anointed by Saul at his father's house to the time he actually took the throne as king. And a lot happened in between. A lot of character building stuff happened in between. And we miss that kind of stuff, generally speaking. Some churches they get that and they disciple and they mentor and they raise folks up and they don't force them out into the fire, so to speak. They kind of get them conditioned to be able to start leading and serving and stuff. But some ministries and organizations, they don't do that. They'll toss you out there and kind of try to catch lightning in a bottle. Sometimes good things happen, but a lot of times they don't. So I'm grateful for that journey I had to develop character because if I didn't have that, I know for sure, without question, if I didn't have those situations, those character defining moments before and now, doing what we're doing right now, it'd be a bad situation. It'd be a really, really bad look. So I thank God for all the character defining moments.
I completely agree. And not only that, but it's written in the New Testament that those who are called to teach and you spread the word, they're held to a higher standard. They're judged more harshly than those who are just followers,
Double
So when you're a
condemnation.
teacher.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's something interesting actually, because I always wondered why God took me through the nuclear navy. And there's 100 different reasons I could tell you now, but one of them I think was character development, meeting certain people, going through certain events, even with every part of my life, even other jobs I've had and places I've gone. There's a lot of reasons and ways because God's ways are different than our ways, his thoughts, different than our thoughts. And I think it's important, like you said, to acknowledge your calling and to pursue it, but to also make sure you're ready for it and to pray with God to be ready for it. And sometimes I think we can have a calling, but when we try to force it into our timing rather than God's timing, we can mess things up. I think, like you said,
Yeah.
there is a season for all things, and I believe that a lot of times God doesn't give us everything we want all at once because sometimes we're not ready for it. One of the great
Yeah.
stories I heard was like, maybe God didn't give you all that money because when you were at that age and that mindset, you would have blown it all on something stupid. But now that you're older and he's seen what you've done and you're in alignment with his will and in the scripture, you can take that money and do great things with it. And I think it's important. And I always encourage people too. And I have an episode coming out on my show about this as well, specifically about youth in ministry, looking at the ages of people in the Bible from the prophets of the Old Testament to the disciples of the New Testament, and knowing that your calling, you're never too young or too old, is a message I was going over the other day. So I think it's so important. And I was going to ask you about, actually, I was thinking that you had only mentioned a mother and grandmother initially, and then you mentioned fatherhood in negative terms a little bit later on. And obviously, you're a father and grandfather. So I want to get into what growing up did you have as a father figure influence in your life, if at all, both in a good way and or a bad way?
Yeah, I don't go into the realm where I kind of do sob stories. I try to take accountability where I need to and just be responsible.
Mhm.
But honestly, I wish I can give you a better story and say, you know what, it came from here and here. I honestly didn't have it, man. I didn't have it on any level. There were people who could have been that, but they didn't have the capacity to do it.
Mm.
People who were, connected with my mother, or, people who connected with my grandmother, they had the opportunity. My uncle, but he wasn't a parent, but there were opportunities to kind of father, but they, for whatever the reason was, they couldn't do it. My natural father was halfway across the country by the time I was born. So there wasn't a lot of influence there. So I honestly, I just kind of just try to get through it. My mom tried to do the best that she could, and I credit her so much for that. I mean, I was an active, athletic kid, so I had my Rollins glove and my bat, and she took me out there bike riding. I was riding 10 speeds when I was a little guy. I was just active, shooting hoops. I wanted to work on my foul shooting and my 3-point shot. I mean,
Yes, sir.
tossing the football around trying to work on my spiral. That wasn't great at the time, for the record. But she tried to do all that she could with that. But honestly, there's only so much you can do as a mother. I mean, all love to the mothers out there, but you can't replace a father. You can try, but you really can't do it. So I didn't really have that. I mean, honestly, I probably say in 1984, that was my biggest picture of what a father looked like. It was on the Cosby Show, man. That's how I learned what it's like to have a family that, a whole family that's successful and progressive and able to deal with issues and still love each other. That was my example, a TV show. So
Mm.
no offense to anybody in my life, but that's really what, that was my glimpse of it. I didn't have it any other places. I wasn't seeing it in the church. I wasn't seeing it in the personal lives of people who were around me. It wasn't in my neighborhood. We had that mentality. It takes a village to raise a child. We had that in my
Right.
neighborhood. If I messed up out there in the street, that was two chastisements for me. One from the person that caught me, and when I get home. But as far as fatherhood and parenting, I didn't really have that. So I don't really know how I got to where I am to be a father, a grandfather, and now I found out we got a little great-grandchild, 2 years old. I don't know how I got to the place where I can be able to do what I've done, leave my family, except to say it was just God. When I decided that, what, my natural father isn't gonna, he doesn't have the capacity to be what I need him to be, and I didn't have any other influences, people who are father figures that could have been that, abdicated their roles in that situation. So all I could do was turn to the most loving father of them all, the father that would not leave me when things get hot. The father's not going to go to the store and never come back. That kind of father. And that was pivotal for me because that helped me to see, okay, this is what a loving father looks like. And what I try to do is model that with my daughters and with our grandkids. Did that make sense?
Yes, sir. The reason I bring it up is because you wrote a book, The Heart of the Stepfather. And so I
Yeah.
need to know, you know, how you were able to, and you kind of just answered it, on your own, which was how does a man who didn't have a father figure growing up become this ultimate stepfather and write this book? And so I was curious what other factors influenced it and how your experience of it as a stepfather was.
Yeah. That stepfather word, we've never used it. It was in a book because it was necessitous because of who we were trying to reach.
Right.
But that term has never been used in my household at any point in time. I've been a father from the start. I may
Mm.
just well, I may have stepped in where somebody should have been, perhaps. We can argue that point. I'm good with conceding that point at least. But I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do as a father. Learning, stumbling and bumping a little bit of the way because I didn't know everything. You know what I'm saying? Still learning stuff even now at my age. But I was a father from the beginning. And I did all the things that a father is supposed to do. That book was just it's an incredible story. Like it wasn't my story, right? But it's just incredible to look at the book and read it myself. And like, wow, that actually happened to you, dude, and you made it. But I just, I felt like the loving father model for me by God was, and that's the only example I have. I mean, I can't do any better. So I had a lot of pity parties in this process, even of writing that book. I'm like, get over yourself. You know what I'm saying? They got people who have it worse than that. Some people who don't have any parents at all. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
you were blessed, even in the midst of all you dealt with, even all the rejection and the desire for affirmation and you couldn't get it. I was like, you turned out to be a pretty solid dude considering. And I just kind of feel like, you know what? I'm not perfect, but I feel like I could have been a lot worse. I've seen the pictures. I know what it could have been. It's like you're doing all right to be where you are, to say what you're saying, and to be able to influence others on the level that you're doing that with your background, with all the deficiencies you had. I'm like, I would just, man, I had a mentality of just taking lemon to make lemonade. I would just, that was all I was trying to really do. I'm like, this really sucks. This is bad. The family dynamic was really yucky, really some nasty work going on in my family surrounding all this stuff. But
Right.
I'm still here. So you know what? I'm gonna drink this lemonade and go ahead and put in that work. Because I mean, what else can I do? Lay down and just die? What else can I do? I'm gonna go ahead and put in this work. And I ain't no stepfather. I've been a father from the beginning. And I'm gonna be a
Mhm.
father to the end. And it's like, if you want that, of course, it's available. But I mean, that's my approach to this, and that's how I'm approaching this life every single day. So I don't even know how that book got written and where all this stuff came from. I was just pouring it out all over 194 pages, just
Mhm.
pouring it all out, saying, God, I'm just giving you all of this stuff, and if it impacts somebody, great. I heard so many positive responses, Mr. Whiskey, that I can't even name them all. I might get emotional even talking about it, so I'm gonna keep it short. So many responses saying, this is exactly where I'm at. I thought nobody cared. I thought nobody was going through this but me. This is exactly where I was, exactly what I went through. How you saw that problem is going to help me solve mine with my kids. I heard so much stuff. It was incredible. And then, of course, the bottom fell out. The publishing company, they went belly up, went bankrupt, and couldn't get the book out to anybody else. So that's just a short story of that. But that book was a blessing, man. And we have a blessed life no matter how much adversity we have in it. It's about how we approach it.
Right. And you mentioned influencing people, being an inspiration, encouragement, and passing on knowledge. And we mentioned in the beginning you have multiple podcasts. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about each of those because I know you have multiple. And I'd love for you to go from oldest to newest, in fact, if I think that would be most efficient. But if you want to start with your newest project, because that's your baby and you're excited and passionate about it, feel free.
I can do it your way, no worries. I guess the oldest. It's the oldest? Hmm. Ooh, I remember which one started first. I think the oldest would be the Inspiration Station. That's a one-on-one show where I just talk to the people, almost like what I'm doing now, but you're not here. Kind of like that. I'm talking about the issues of the day, topics that I think are relevant, things that I've seen that I think we can learn from, anecdotes and stories, and kind of just talking to the people for about 10 minutes, 15 at the most. And it's just a boost of inspiration. Most times I'm more inspired than anybody by doing that. I get a
Mm.
lot off my chest. I grow in the process and learn about me and the situation. And if nothing else, it gives me perspective. When the responses I'm hearing, people are getting perspective from it too. So I think that probably be considered the oldest. The Mista Yu brand started off with multiple shows in it, and we kind of morphed into starting to do interviews. So One on One with Mr. Yu is our flagship show now. It's basically the main deal right now. I've been interviewing folks from all around the world, quite literally. In the past six 6 months or so, 6 months, I probably interviewed about maybe 30 some odd people. I think it's more than that, but through the community that you and I are a part of, it's been about 30 something, but it's been about 10 outside of that. So almost 50 people in about 6 months. So it's going very well, keeps me on my toes. What that does give me a chance to kind of hear different perspectives because it's real easy for us, especially as men, to get in our own heads and think, oh man, nobody understands this. I'm gonna just stay in isolation. This is just a me thing. I got to figure it out myself. When I interview these folks and hear their stories, I'm like, wow. What was I complaining about again? I've heard some of the
Right.
crazy stories. They're all on our YouTube channel. You can hear them all. The stories. I'm like, wow. It changes your perspective about your life. If it doesn't, something check your pulse. Something's not right. So I've been blessed by this show one on one. I'm excited about the future of this. I mean, we're meeting more people who have incredible stories of risk, adversity,
Hmm.
struggle, and overcoming death. And it's just so many rich stories. So I'm getting blessed by this just as the host, you know. And after that, our show, The Big Blue Lifers, kind of got launched. I was doing a show called That Thursday Thing. Well, it was that Monday thing first, and it was that Thursday thing, and then it evolved into T3. We're doing that for over a year. We were talking about everything in the sports where we had a crew with us, 3, 4 man crew. We had panelists coming in every week that were joining us as co-hosts. And we were doing that for a while, but I kind of just felt like I was losing my taste for it. Like it kind of wasn't hitting the spot for me anymore. I love sports, still doing analysis and stuff from time to time, but it just was missing something. So Big Blue Lifers was kind of a way to infuse some purpose into what we were doing. Talking about my favorite team, which I rarely ever spend time talking about. Found a buddy that shared that same view. He wanted to do it as well. So you know what? Dream come true for both of us, and we've been doing it for a little while, not long, probably about 9 or 10 episodes in. He knows that it's not going to be a lifetime thing. I'm just doing it for now, but at some point, I'm probably going to end up letting it go. But we're having fun with it right now. We're going into our very first season together doing this, so we decided to see how that works. And lastly, I didn't like you said mentioned earlier, I wasn't planning to make a podcast out of this. It was just going to be an offshoot of our flagship show. But our men's roundtable series, I am very excited about that because I've been hearing through those interviews on one with Mr. Yu, I've been hearing from so many men who have the same consistent cry. I ever heard it from you when you were on our show. The same consistent cry for community and connection,
Hmm.
especially for men. Women had it too, but especially for men. And I'm like, wow, I'm sensing a theme here. So I heard it so many times that honestly, I couldn't ignore it any longer. So I try to find a way to offer opportunity for men to come together in a safe space and talk about issues that are germane to men. So that's how I was born. I'm going to do it locally here first. We had some roadblocks with that. So you say, you know what? I got a podcast platform. Let's use it. So I was sitting down, already decided 3 shows was my max. Wasn't doing it anymore. I used to do like 10 shows, plus the 3 or 4 I was a panelist on every single week. I was doing like 14 shows. I'm like, this is a lot. I'm not doing that anymore. So I said 3 is my limit. And I sat in front of the computer, almost like this now, without the cameras on though. And I started hearing ideas and music and graphics. I'm like, no, no, it's getting
Not
ready to happen.
again.
That's how it happened before. I'm like, oh no, I said 3. I already said it out loud in front on social media. I said only 3. Now a 4th one was born in less than 15 minutes. So the music is awesome. The graphics are great, but the people that are coming on, the panelists, and of course, you're definitely invited to be one of those as well. They've been coming through, and it's been outstanding. Our first premiere was last Thursday at 7 p.m. So on all the social, you can catch it wherever you are on social. The response was amazing. It was intense. This was definitely hitting a spot for a lot of men around the world. So I'm excited about this. So yeah, that's kind of the new hot thing that's going on. And we're excited about keeping that going. So those are our 4 shows. I stay busy, guesting on shows like yours and some other awesome shows that I have a chance to guest on. We're just staying busy. The podcast life is a life all of its own. So
Yeah,
we stay busy, man.
I feel you on that.
It's really a blessing.
It is. And whenever I have a faith-based guest, I like to end a specific way, which is I'd like for you to share a Bible quote with us, whatever it is on the spot on your heart right now. If you were to share one Bible quote, or 2 or 3 if you want, I won't stop you. But if you have one you could leave with us today, what would that be?
Absolutely. I would go with Romans 12:1 and 2, one of my favorite passages in the Bible. And it reminds us that because of the mercies that we've seen, that we should present our bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is our reasonable service or reasonable act of worship, is how it's translated in other translations. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you know what the
Mm.
good, perfect, and acceptable will of God is for your life. And I love that one because it challenges, it cuts on me every single time. So it's my favorite, even though it's probably a painful one. You put it, put your face in the mirror of it. It's like, wow, are you living up to this? Are you a living sacrifice? The living sacrifices have an option that dead sacrifices don't have. A living sacrifice can get up off of the altar and say, you know what? All this cutting business, not here for it. Bye. They can do that. A living sacrifice that stays there is a whole different level. You say, you know what, God, I want all you have for me. I want to be changed. I want to be made whole. So if you got to cut something out of me that doesn't belong, something ugly, something unearthly, something that is counterproductive to my purpose, then go ahead and cut it out of me. I don't mind dying to that stuff if I can live for you on the other side of it. So that passage of scripture is deep to me. It's deeply rooted in humility. There's no self-righteousness in that. There's no a self-aggrandizement in that. It's just pure humility. It's just worship. It's just honor for what you have. And and it's not about you. And I think at the end of the day, with all that we talk about, especially in the podcasting world, I think it's really relevant. 'Cause when you go ahead and hit record and that light comes on and that webcam camera is green lit, you can think about it being about you, or think about that person who, you know what, needs to hear what you have to say. It changes how you think. It changes how you talk. It changes how you frame your episodes. It changes everything. So I just want to encourage the people who are listening who may not have podcasts, you still have a voice. You still have an opportunity to help make somebody's life better. I know that yours isn't great. I get that. Like I was talking about earlier with not having a father, that impacts a child in ways that I can't even explain to you. If you already have one, be grateful. Don't be judgy. Just be grateful because everybody doesn't have it, and there's a price to be paid. There's a cost to not have a parent in your household for whatever the reason is, by death or by choice. There's a cost to be paid when that happens. So I just say to you guys that are watching and listening to Mr. Whiskey's show, you have an opportunity to change somebody's life for the better. It's not about you. You don't get to decide to deprive something from somebody who could be watching and listening. Do what you're supposed to be doing because somebody's going to be blessed because of it.
Amen. Yeah, like you said, it's accountability and conviction. And I think important not being conformed to this world, which we see through social media, through podcasting, through music, a lot of young people and televangelists conforming to the world in order to entice people to come to Christ and discover the Word of God. But some of them are throwing away the value of the Word, the righteousness of God's will. They are blaspheming and being hypocritical, or even just we've seen some awful things in order to entice people to come to God's word. And I think, like you said, it's not about conforming to the world. We're supposed to live different than it and be aligned with God's word, not the world. So I
Oh yeah.
think that's really important for everyone to remember. And I do appreciate your encouragement that, it's actually something I try to make sure I practice, which is that I try to say this isn't my show. This is God's show that I just
I love
happen to
it.
host.
I
He
love it.
has entrusted me with this, but he's the real boss and owner. I'm
I
just
love it.
hosting it. So I think that's important, especially for us who run faith-based organizations or shows, whatever it is. They say do it as if for the Lord and knowing that all is his. So, but I think this has been a great interview between you and I, Mr. You and I. And
Did you did
it's
there?
you're a great guy, and I think like with all your work in today's episode, your heart showed through, and I wish you luck in your continued work. And I know we'll connect again, and we'll be
Oh
sure
yeah.
to connect
We
again.
better. We better connect again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God willing. And so I want to thank you for today. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out more of Mr. U stuff, we're gonna have it in the description below. You got plenty of options. You got plenty of different shows to check out for Mr. U and some of his other stuff as well. So maybe you're not the biggest sports fan, but if you're a fan of Mr. U and inspiration and all that, then you've got that. And if you don't like inspiration and you like sports, you got that too.
You
So
don't like
we got a lot
inspiration?
covered.
Oh my God. Okay.
I don't know who doesn't like inspiration, but if you're one of those people where you rather just talk about football, by all means. But that can be inspiring in some. But Mr. You, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me on, man. This has been fantastic, man. Thank you.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air, On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side. As one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, the source of great pride.